Welcome to my new video. This is PokeStrive, and today we are talking about should you buy Ceruledge in Pokemon Unite or not. Let's dive in. So a new Pokemon, this bad boy Ceruledge, has just released in Pokemon Unite, and now it is time for me to let you know if you should buy Ceruledge. First off, I want to make a distinction between getting Ceruledge and the Ceruledge commemorative event pass. This is not like the one with Phalanx where you get this and then you obtain Ceruledge through it. So if you're looking at this pass, this is a way to get this cosmetic for Ceruledge. Also, if you're free to play, there are a ton of rewards that you can unlock just through playing, but this is not how you get the Pokemon. You would buy it from the shop. 575 gems or 13,000 coins next week. So let's talk about set our newest all-rounder to Unite ranked at intermediate difficulty, and I actually think that's pretty fair. Cage has two move sets, or sort of two in theory move sets. Of course, you can mix and match a lot of different things, and I actually do like sort of a mixed move set, but it has kind of in theory two play styles. Right, we've got our Flame Charge Psycho Cut, which just feels a little bit like Mimikyu to me, a little bit like Meow Scarada to me. It's got decent burst, it has a nice chase to it with Flame Charge. You get your boosted attacks a lot. You're applying a ton of wound damage to your opponents, and generally I actually find this playstyle to be not only a little simpler, it is simpler, it's less deliberate, but also a little more fun. And I've had better output with it, so I've had matches with more cost, more damage, and I feel more in control of those games, but it is a simpler move set. So it's not surprising that kind of my first day of playing with Ceruledge, I'm enjoying a move set that's a little simpler while I kind of learn everything that's going on with this Pokemon. The other move set is going to be Phantom Force and Bitterblade. Now again, you can mix these moves up a little bit here. Phantom Force feels at times incredibly good and at times incredibly underwhelmed. There are times where literally I will Phantom Force, I will completely, essentially negate the damage from a Blasto Unite move or something like I'll hide through the damage, then I'll pop up and continue to fight. That feels really, really good. Then there are other times where I'm just surprised that Phantom Force maybe isn't doing as much damage as I would like it to. It's a really fun move set, and I think it offers the most outplay potential against your opponents. Right, like you will be able to hide through big burst of damage. You'll be able to hide through a portion of Icicle Spears going at you. You will be able to duck the moment you see a Venusaur Unite flying through the air, like it does some really cool stuff, and the outplay potential there is probably too good to pass up once you get good at it. And then we have Bitterblade, so your first move option is either Bitterblade or Psycho Cut, and I got to say a Bitterblade feels fine. It feels fine. I think Psycho Cut just feels so much better. It's easier to use. It's like a faster cast, easier to aim, sets up your boosted faster. It reggens faster because once you're hitting with the autos, a regen is not the right word, but it comes off cooldown faster because once you're hitting with your auto attacks, you are resetting this move a lot faster. It also shreds enemy defenses, so I was surprised, but I really am not a fan of Bitterblade yet. It has its moments, and I've like secured Ray with it, secured some big coast. It has some healing. I actually think Bitterblade feels like the most underwhelming part of this kit, even though you think it would be Flame Charge because Flame Charge is so incredibly basic. You are dashing, you're giving yourself a boosted. You got two uses in reserve, like Flame Charge is very, very simple, right? However, I actually like a Flame Charge even more than Bitterblade. They're not on the same move one access, but still, I think Bitterblade is maybe the least exciting part of this kit. It just has a long wind-up. It's weird aiming. It doesn't work exactly the way you wanted to. However, I think again, like Phantom Force, once you get better with it, the deliberate action you'll take with this move I think is going to probably be better. It's just a little like right now. So those are the moves. And then of course we have its Unite move, which is awesome. I don't know if it was buffed from the PTS. I don't know what exactly was buffed from the PTS, but this feels better than it did on the public test server. I think Cage all around feels better than the public test server all-arounder inside Pokemon Unite. And I do think this feels a lot stronger. The Unite move specifically is crazy good. Now there are some weird things with it. It's actually annoying to aim on Switch the way it's aiming is. It's like a slow drag that you have to sort of peel around. The aiming reminds me of like a really slow Heavy Slam Snorlax aiming. It's just really awkward, and I think if they tune that up, that would be amazing, but the power on it incredible. Like you will Win big team fights because you hit this Unite move for sure now that I've talked a little bit about its moves, and it also has a damage kind of overtime move called Wound that also sets up dealing more damage to your opponents. It has like a few cool things going on now that I've talked a little bit about its moves. I want to talk about how fun this Pokemon is, because when I'm looking at buying a Pokemon, to me it matters of not only its power level, cause that's going to fluctuate over the course of the game. Right, like at one point a Tyranitar was broken, and then Tyranitar wasn't that great for a long time, then it kind of got a little bit better, then it got a lot better with one move set, and all of a sudden Tar is like a meta choice, so I don't put too much weight into how powerful a Pokemon is. I will speak to its power level, but I really care as to whether or not I enjoy playing it, and with this Pokemon evolving at 5 and moving through combat in a pretty fun way with a really fun Unite move, I would say this is pretty high on like the fun factor of a new Pokemon, which for me, that's very important. I like the novelty. Two like failings is for me is like, oh my gosh, what they like totally nailed. The novelty of this Ceruledge feels very much like something with two swords moving around the battlefield. It's not the most inspired design in the world, except its Unite move is unbelievably cool, but I do think it's relatively fun. You only have to evolve once at level 5, and then once you do your kind of online and you're a force inside of battles. You are a strong carry, but you're not unbelievably broken. Now that we're kind of moving on from sort of the fun factor of it to its power level in the game, I need more time with it, but I would say it's reasonable to say this is about an A or B plus level Pokemon on a tier list. I think probably closer to a, given how powerful its Unite move is, and you really don't need to do a ton to get this thing online. I think its power level is pretty solid, and it honestly will probably get a little bit of a buff. I think when you're looking at the roadmap for what's going on with Ceruledge, I wouldn't be surprised if you see small touch-ups here, or they're kind of like we saw with Meowscarada, where Meowscarada released and it was pretty dang good, and then it got some small touch-ups, and all a sudden it was like, all right, we went from like B plus A to A plus, and I think that's the path Ceruledge is going to be on. I wouldn't be shocked at all if we see a few buffs here or there for this Pokemon. It's a really cool release. I think they nailed the vibe of it, which they often do in United. It's one of the truly the best thing about Pokemon Unite is not your favorite content creators, but the best things in Pokemon Unite inside Pokemon Unite are how well they bring a Pokemon into the game, and you feel like it is that Pokemon. I think they did a great job with Ceruledge, especially watching the new anime. Like, I really do feel the vibes of sort of its Phantom Force and Bitter Blade and things like that, so I think they kind of nailed that aspect of it. So now that I've kind of gone over all of the things that I consider most when buying something, like maybe its power level, how fun it is, does it fill a role you don't have, which is something you're going to have to consider cause the game has an insane amount of all-rounders. I think this is our 8,000th all-rounder released inside Pokemon Unite ding, so I do understand if you think, yeah, I don't actually need another thing like this on my roster. I think that's completely fair. This is that all-rounder again that's little like a Mimikyu. It feels like mix between an all-rounder and a speedster. It's kind of somewhere in that zone of not really full brawling and not really full burst, and I do think they should lean more in one of those directions. That's a conversation for you. No balance in game changes, but I do think if they leaned a little more into, oh, this thing is like a sustained sort of all-rounder because it has a lot of life steal, or if it leaned more into no, this is bursty, it's kind of like on the edge of being a speedster, I think that would definitely help the Pokemon out. But again, I've kind of given you all of my thought processes on it, and I'll give you my verdict. I'll compare this to a couple Pokemon for failings. For me, that's an absolute yes, one of my favorite releases. I think it's really good, really fun. That for me is like one of the most yes by this Pokemon that we have had in a long time now. I've got to compare this to something like maybe Metagross or maybe Lapras or something where you would go, I really like this design. I think it's excellent. And I also think you're going to have other things in the game that you are going to have a similar experience on. Not exactly the same, but a similar experience on, so I would be leaning towards buy with this. But as always, one nice thing is you can get this Pokemon, with tons of trial licenses, so you'll be able to know if you really want to pick this up. If your concern is it broken? I want to play broken things. No, don't buy it even Though I do think Ceruledge will probably get a buff if your concern is this thing actually fun? Yes, I think. This Pokemon is quite fun if you like things like Mimikyu, maybe even if you kind of like the deliberate play of something like AIS/ if we're looking at Sword of the Bitter Blade, Phantom Force build, and then if your other consideration is do I have something like this in my roster, you're just gonna have to really look at your team and go, is this different from a lot of what I have? Again, there are tons of all-rounders in the game, so I'm not sure exactly what you've got. This is a mostly buy for me, and I think it's a great release. I'm having a ton of fun with it, but it's not like a home run. Failings, I love this thing. I would love to hear from you in the comments. What do you think? Is this something you want buy? Is this something you want to wait on? Are you going to wait for buffs? Are you going to sort of, test it out and kind of decide from there? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, and I'll see you all next time. We did it.